Hi, I'm Neil at Italia Autos, and I think I've just made the biggest mistake of my life. I've just bought the UK's cheapest Porsche Boxster 718S. Now, there's going to be many reasons why this is going to be the cheapest Boxster in the UK, and mainly because it's a Category S accident damage car. Now, we're all guilty of doing this, looking at cars which are far out of our price range and then starting to lower our budget a little bit to what we can afford within the price range we've got, and this is what I've done here. So I'm now the proud owner of a very damaged, filled with tons of faults, a part repaired, well neglected Porsche Boxster S. So yeah, let's have a look at it. Now, I spent ages deliberating over whether I should buy this or not. The sensible side of me was saying, hell no, run away, don't buy this car. But the side of me which wants something that I can't afford decided that, nope, I need to have it. So I went down to what was pretty much Kent to buy it. Now, normally when I buy a car, it's normally pretty local to me, but this one was 185 miles away. So the logistics of getting down to it to view it wasn't easy, so I had to either decide whether I was going to buy it or not buy it over pictures, a few videos, a little bit of research via the registration. So yes, here we are now with the Porsche behind me. Now, I thought I had a fairly good idea of the damage from looking at all the photos, the videos, and you know, as with buying a car, you can't see everything. It was grainy footage, not the best quality videos, moving too fast, so had it on my computer, pausing it at certain points, comparing it to pictures I could find on the internet, watching other Porsche videos, trying to work out what was bent, how stuff was bent, how much stuff cost. So yeah, it was actually really difficult to decide that I was going to purchase this car. I mean, one of the big deliberations was, and one of the massive red cards was that it's already been partially repaired. So you don't know what damage has been there before, you don't know what damage has been found since, you don't know what is beyond repair, you don't know how much stuff's going to cost because all you can see is some body panels which have been slammed on top. They're not even bolted on correctly. So it was very risky buying this car from photos and videos. Now, for those that watch the channel know that I only ever really work on Alfa Romeos and Fiats and Abarths, so me deciding to work on a Porsche, it's a big choice for me because I don't know how they come apart, don't know how they come together, don't know how much don't know how much parts cost, don't know what the regular faults are, don't know loads of things about it. Don't even know whether I've got the right machine to diagnose any faults on the ECU, let alone resetting the airbag faults or bleeding the brake system or anything like that. So it's going to be a massive learning curve for me doing this project. So I've rebuilt loads of cars over the years, but this is probably the most prestigious, and it's definitely by far the most expensive one I've ever bought for myself to work on. So it's going to be a good challenge ahead. But I'd got that itch and I needed to scratch it. You know, I'm a middle-aged man. I've got to have a Porsche at some point. So here we go. It's done. Now, someone had started to fix this car. They've done some suspension work to it. They've fitted a wing. They've fitted another side skirt. They've fitted a wing mirror, fitted a whole new complete door. Now, I honestly don't know the reason why somebody's giving up repairing this. Is it because it was too difficult for them because they didn't have enough knowledge to repair it? Is it because they've come across a big fault with the engine or the gearbox and it's too expensive to repair? I just don't know. So this video series is purely about trying to fix this car and learning a whole new bunch of skills that hopefully you guys can watch and learn too. So after donning my Inspector Clouseau hat and being a keyboard warrior armed with a registration, I went to Google and I did a little bit of research and found that the vehicle was actually sold by Porsche 2 years ago. The new owner must have had it and he then must have crashed it a few months later, and the only thing I can find is a picture in a local news article with a picture of the car clearly seeing the registration, and that's all the information I could actually find about it on Google. But I did a car vertical check. No, they're not sponsoring the video, but it actually gave me photos of when the car was at the Porsche dealer and it was in the for sale ad, so I could see what an absolutely mint car it was. Now, Porsche don't do things by half. This car would have been in amazing condition, fully serviced, looking great, but unfortunately now it's in a proper state. So after doing a little bit of Googling, I did manage to get my hands on 4 photos of the vehicle after it had had its accident and it was parked in a driveway. So here are the photos now. Let me know what you think of its condition there. I personally didn't think it was too bad, a really quite light accident. And showing all these photos with all these white panels on it, it actually makes it look a lot worse than in the accident photos. Now, that little part of me thought I'd come away with a bargain, you know, I was lovely and happy. He'd come back to bite me. As soon as we got it loaded on and we were on our way, I was like, yes, I've got myself a reasonable bargain there. I'm going to look forward to repairing this and can't wait to get back home. We just joined the M25 and bang, I got a little bit of a snaking on the trailer. It sorted itself out, thinking, oh, I've just gone down a pothole, it'll be fine. A few seconds later, people honking the horns, flashing at me. Looked in my rear view mirror and loads of tyre smoke coming up in the air. I'd actually had a blowout on the trailer. And the next thing was, I'm on the M25, it's a 4-lane motorway, there's no hard shoulder. What am I going to do? I'm not going to stop here, so I managed to get myself to the hard shoulder, which was probably about half a mile, 3/4 of a mile away from where this happened. So I was pooing my pants there, driving along at 40 miles an hour. So eventually we got there, we had to wait an hour for the recovery truck, and then a further 3 hours for the AA guy. And then we had to go and find a tyre for it. So I think all in all, we were held up for about 6 hours. So we were hoping to get back early afternoon, took the car away in the unit, go out with my mate who came with me for a few beers. No, that didn't happen. We finally got home at 10 p.m. last night and we'd done 455 miles. I was absolutely cream crackered on the Sunday, and it was actually my birthday on the Sunday, so I didn't actually do anything for my birthday other than laze around all day and have a lie in bed. So I'm now all rested, we're back with the car. Let's go over it and have a look at what damage is actually on the car. Let's start at the front of the car and work our way back. The front bumper has loads of scrapes and damage. You can see it's all cut down there, and the worst bit being down in the corner here, so it can't be repaired. The wing has some dents on it in a few different spots, but I'm hoping that this wing can be repaired. This alloy wheel is buckled and really badly scraped. Massive dent here which needs pulling out. This is metal, I do believe, so we should be able to get this repaired without having to replace the quarter panel. Rear spoiler is chipped and has a big part missing from it. These are quite expensive to buy for what is a bit of plastic. The rear bumper has a scrape on it. The rear valance has been dented, and there's also a little bit of a deformation in the rear bumper. I can feel a lump there, so that's going to have to be warmed up and sorted out. The exhaust at the back is bent. The rear bumper isn't fitting correctly here. The rear wheel has loads of curbing on it. I'm hoping that it isn't buckled. The side skirt here is scraped and damaged in a couple of spots, but that should be able to be reused. There is damage here on this rear quarter panel. Don't know how it's happened, as the door here wasn't damaged. So it's lifted the quarter up that way. It's also pushed it that way, so this doesn't align here. This should be probably about 1 centimetre lower down, and the door gap needs pulling out. Fuel filler cap isn't on there because all the wings and all the front panels are all loose. There's a dink on the bonnet, if we can see it there. Now, I think the reason they crashed this car is because all the tyres are not that good, especially the rear tyres. This one isn't too bad, but the rest of them are shocking, and at £300 a tyre, they aren't cheap to replace. Now let's crack on with the interior. We're missing the door card, but that's all got to be stripped down and rebuilt. I do have a ton of parts here to go back on. Belt pretensioners have gone off both sides. There was only somebody in the driver's seat, but the passenger side has still gone off. We need to fit the airbag. Hopefully the loom is all okay. It does look okay. The rear view mirror is also loose. It was actually disconnected. I've just managed to get it on a little bit. All the wiring is disconnected. We're also missing the sun visors. Well, they've been removed. So I'm going to assume that it's had a new windscreen put in it. I can't see any obvious signs that it's a new one, but it doesn't say Porsche anywhere on it. It does say Pilkington in the corner, so at least it's a good quality screen. Now, another reason why I wanted this car is it's the S version. It's a 2.5 with 350 brake horsepower. And some might say, oh, it's a little bit less than the BMW M3 or a little bit less than the Giulia Quadrifoglio. But this weighs a couple of 100 kilos lighter, so it should, in theory, be just as quick. Especially being lighter, it should be just as good around those twisty corners. Now, I know the vehicle's got oil in it, but it's very difficult to actually check the oil level because there's no dipstick in these. You literally can't even see the engine. There's nowhere to actually see the engine behind you. So I'm going to start it. We know it's got oil in it. Let's have a listen to it and see what it sounds like. You ready? We've got loads of error messages on the dashboard, but we can get those sorted out. That sounds good. So let's talk about the positives now. The seat airbags haven't gone off. There's no dashboard airbag damage because that is extremely expensive to replace. Pretty much all the parts I need to repair it are actually with the car. There's some suspension components which I already know about, which I need to get, but when we get it on the ramp I'll show you about those. Both headlights are still intact because they are like £2,000 each to replace, so I'm glad they're both okay. One of the reasons why I went for this car rather than waiting for something else was its spec. It's got the PDK gearbox, it's got the sports chrono package, it's got the tinted rear lights that I fitted the GTS at the back. It's got tons of stuff. It's got cooled seats, it's got climate control, it's got radar cruise control. So it's pretty much got most of the options I wanted out of a Porsche. The only two things it hasn't got, which I would have spec'd from new, would have been the sports seats, where you've got little winglets at the top of the seats. And I would have loved the leather pack, which would mean you've got a leather dashboard, top leathers to the door card, and the center console was all in leather. That would have been a lovely option, but again, brand new. It's not a cheap option, so you only really see this on the GTS versions. Now, while it's all lined and ready to go up in the air, this wheel is bending in that way. So it's got some major suspension damage on that side. And another thing I've noticed is the wheels aren't straight. This one is pointing out, even though the steering wheel is straight. And this wheel is, I'd say, pretty much pointing in the correct direction. It may be towing in a little bit. Right, I can see a couple of reasons why this rear wheel isn't pointing in the right direction. This bar is bent, so that's going to be kicking it back. So if you can see here, there's no bend. And a big massive bend here. Oh, okay, another reason why the wheel's turning in. If you look at that shocker up and down, try and work it out so you can see it, it's actually bent. Let's show you this one here. Nice and straight. This one is bent, so I'll bet you we're going to want a hub because that's an aluminium hub and they bend really easily. We're going to want some rear anti-roll bar links, and I'm hoping that's about it. Hopefully this arm wouldn't have bent, but I can pretty much guarantee you that that hub is bent as well. And the expensive thing is it's got Porsche PASM, Porsche Active Suspension Management. So it's got one of the fancy Spandoogle shockers, which dampens differently depending on whether you push the button or not. So I bet they're going to be really expensive. Everything else on the passenger rear wheel looks okay. The thing I was worried about was the impact this exhaust had on the rear bumper. Has it touched the gearbox? Because the gearbox is right at the back of the engine. But from what I can tell, the exhaust has saved everything at the back. There's no fluid leaking, there's no sign of damage. I'm also looking on this skid plate at the bottom, making sure it's not dented in. I think there's a little tiny dent there, we're talking tiny. And a little bit of scraping along here. None of the nuts are overly covered in crap like mud, grass, things like that. So it doesn't appear as though this part has seen too much of the wrong side of some rocks. A little bit of damage at the jacking point here. You can see the chassis leg, not the chassis leg, the chassis, the jacking support point is a little bit bent over. A little bit of damage here, but that can be sorted out really easy. Looks like there was a fixing point here, that has now gone, so I'm going to have to weld a little stud on there so I can get the under tray back on it. Underneath the front of the car here, we've got, again, a little bit of rust, which, you know, for a 5-year-old car, I wouldn't expect that at all. But as I think this car's done a little bit of off-roading during the accident, I think this might have been scraped off, so it's fresh rust. So I will be cleaning all this up, don't you worry, and it will be gone. When I was speaking to the guy, he did say some coolant pipes are off it and it's not sort of pressurised for a cooling system to warm it up properly. And this will be why this connector isn't in at all. So I'm probably going to buy this whole new pipe just to eliminate any future leaks. So we can see underneath it, there's no actual dents here. There's just mud underneath it. So it has definitely been off-road when it crashed. A little bit of damage to this front part here, but that can be sorted out. There's nothing there I would be worried about at all. Underneath it here, we are missing a cooling pipe from what I could tell in the photos. We're missing a mount here, it's been ripped out. There's a coolant pipe missing here, but I actually have got that pipe in the spare parts. So I do believe it comes sort of along the upper chassis, plugs into somewhere down there. Yeah, I can see a pipe further along there. Let's get you in there so you can see it. Somewhere there anyway, but you can't see it. And it plugs into this one here. That isn't bent there. So we just need a couple of coolant pipes for it. And the biggest part I was worried about is there's a little bit of damage to the floor pan here. And I think this is why they said it was structural, because it has dented the sill a little bit and it's pushed the floor pan over. As all this area is metal, we should hopefully be able to pull all that back into shape, seal it all up again, and it will be good to go. Let's have a look under this arch now and see what damage there is. We need this coolant pipe, which I was saying earlier. This one also looks a little bit rusty. This shocker here looks okay. There's no visible damage that I can see on it, but we're not going to know until we sort out the damage at the back and we can drive it to be taken for a proper four-wheel alignment. So everything else in here looks okay. The brake discs still have plenty of life on them, as do the pads. There's some loose connections which I'm going to have to sort out where they go. I think they just go into each other there, so fingers crossed. That's just for that there. Nothing appears broken, nothing appears damaged, nothing's bent, so this arch is all good. This side there is another water leak down behind here, but you can't get in to see it, so I'm gonna have to put the clip on that as well. I mean, visually there's no damage that I can see to any of the radiators, and all the suspension looks perfectly fine, but we do have two hoses here which have been cut. I don't know where they're supposed to go. We've also got a few loose wires and stuff here which need sorting out. After watching a stupid amount of videos over the last 2 weeks, I do know that these fans are very susceptible to damage. And the front radiators, as you can see them there, are really susceptible to damage because you can just get big massive stones straight through the grills. Now I know that Zunsport do some grills which go in there, and hopefully I'm going to get some of those so that doesn't happen to this one. So I don't think the car is as bad as I thought it was going to be. My main concerns are that floor pan repair, the power steering doing what it's doing. We have a problem with the steering. I don't know whether it's just a resistance or a sensor's gone down or the actual motor itself has been damaged, but it does like to jump around in your hand. But the bonus is I do have another power steering rack at the worst case if it is that one. Now what's bugged me is, why has nobody bought this car sooner? Since I started looking at Porsches, or I should say dreaming about owning a Porsche, a few months ago, this was always listed as for sale on eBay as the cheapest one for sale of this age mileage. And I've always wondered, now it comes to it, when I bought it, why has nobody bought it a few months before? Now I've looked over the car, the only issues that bother me or would stop me from buying it now would be the fact that the car's got no brakes, but there's no visible brake damage or brake hose damage. I may have missed something, but I can't see anything underneath there. The power steering fault. The worst case scenario is the power steering rack has taken a hit and it's damaged the internals of it. That's why it's doing it. So I do have a spare down there that came with the car. So worst case scenario is I can fit that power steering rack to resolve the problem. But it's quite a big job. You've got to drop the subframe, but also you've got to support the fuel tank because the fuel tank's up there. And the third reason is the chassis damage, which you've seen already in the video. Now, those that watch the channel know I can weld and do everything we need to do, so that doesn't really bother me at all. It can all be pulled into position, but what does bother me a little bit is I've got to strip all the interior out to do it, and I've never done that before. So hopefully Porsche have thought about it logically, as the Germans do, and it comes out nice and easily. So there we go. Why do you guys think that this car wasn't snapped up sooner? You let me know in the comments below now, and I'll reply to you as fast as I can. And another factor to think of about why nobody bought it is what put me off is the massive red flag of the fact that somebody's already tried to repair this and obviously given up on it. It would have been much better and looked a lot better if you had these 4 photos to look at and you could see that the car actually wasn't that badly damaged. But on the photos of the eBay listing, you know, your imagination can run wild. There could be tons of damage under there that you can't see. I've taken a gamble on it and fingers crossed it's paid off. So guys, I bet the question you're all dying to know is how much did I pay for it? The vehicle was actually up for £25,000 on eBay and I ended up paying £23,250 for it. I think that's a pretty good buy going by the amount of damage I've seen on it. I've still got to price up a lot of the parts. The steering worries me on the cost of repairs on that, and the rear suspension work, that is what is going to cost the most. And also the alloy wheels for the rear. One of them is bent. If it can't be repaired, I know that's going to cost me 650 quid. So for the moment, it is looking as though it could be a really good buy. So to all the new guys here that are going to be fresh to the channel, hopefully watching this video, don't forget to subscribe, hit that bell icon so you get notifications of when a new video comes out. It is normally every Sunday or at least every other Sunday. Don't forget to comment in the description below about what you think about it, and if you know Porsches, get in contact and see if we can get that power steering fixed. Thank you guys for watching, and I shall see you in the next video.